And welcome into Poke the Bear episode 64, here with Conor Ryan of Boston Sports Journal. And Conor, before we start, we always say who was a number 64? And we actually started recording, and then I stopped and said, wait, who was a number 64? And I said, Bobby Robbins and Lane McDermott. I said, were they number 64? And I was right. I sniped that. Sometimes you just gotta relish in your own good things that you do. And this is a good example of that. I got those right. I feel like that adds a few points to me in some way.
Worthy of a stick tab, Evan. Good job.
Oh yeah, definitely a pat on the back. But Conor, what is up?
Evan, doing well. Not recording from a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot, so things are looking up. How you doing?
I'm good. Yes, that was quite the scene. Honestly, like it looked fine. I don't know if you went and watched the video, but it looked good. The sound was good.
Nice little ambient noise. The rain pitter patters down on my car.
Yeah, for those who love ASMR that listen to this, maybe you could listen to that and were soothed by the rain hitting the top of your Honda. Maybe that was a good thing for you. But it ended up being fine. That's why I was like perfect, because it was either we did that or we would record at like 12:30 in the morning.
Yes.
So I was more in favor of just sending you out to the dunks and the former for sure. Okay, so the preseason is over. It's done. Next stop is the regular season. But that is not for a long time. It's not until October 16th. And it's time of recording this. It's October 7th. We got 9 days until the start of the season. So let the season previews begin. But before we preview the season, which we will on subsequent episodes of this and Bruins Beat, we got to break down the preseason a little bit. And obviously, Wednesday night was the return of Charlie Coyle to the Bruins lineup. And he looked really, really, really good. What did you see out of one Charlie Coyle?
Yeah, obviously just one preseason game, but I think you have to be encouraged by what you saw in terms of him kind of getting back to the strengths of his game. I mean, we've talked about it before that considering what injuries he was dealing with his knee and what was kind of the faults in his game last year. Obviously, the point production is what stands out, but you look at the eye test, and he just didn't really have the same kind of strengths to his game that we usually see from Coyle. Not to say that he's always racking up points, right? But the trademark Charlie Coyle shift where he's, playing keep away in the offensive zone, where he's powering through, getting past skaters, protecting the puck. Didn't see that as much last year, and obviously some of it had to do with the fact that he had a lesser supporting cast on that third line that really didn't get it going at all last year. But when you've also got an ailing knee like he had, it's going to play into it. So the fact that obviously good for him to get rewarded with the goal, keeping it simple, getting to the front of the net. But just the way he seemed like he was a lot more assertive out there, it's definitely a step in the right direction for the Bruins. And as much as we've talked about Jack Studnicka, and I'm sure we will later in this pod, it'd be one thing if, Jack Studnicka had a really, really strong preseason as he did. He's probably on the outside looking in, and then Coyle, played in one game and looked very rusty. It's not to say that, a rusty first game in the preseason is going to be an indictment on how his year is going to go, but it's good that at least Coyle gets out there, plays with Taylor Hall and Craig Smith, and puts together a pretty good performance. I think as much as people want to see Studnicka in the lineup, maybe ease a little bit of concerns that Coyle, at least for one game, looks better, is playing well with his new line mates, and most importantly, looks healthy and is back to playing kind of the game we're used to seeing from Coyle.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, the line looking good with his line mates. I mean, just there was a play with him and Taylor Hall in I think the first or second shift of the game that they had together that they drove the net well. And Taylor Hall took out a defender for kind of Coyle to have a lane to the net. Obviously, Coyle had his goal, but then there was that pass that Coyle made cross zone right before the goal to Craig Smith that was really good. I mean, there was a lot of little things that was like, Charlie Coyle's back. And I think also, when he had Craig Smith next to him last year, Craig Smith had just joined the Bruins. Like this, people forget that was, some of Craig Smith's first games with the Bruins, and that's why he kind of started out a little bit slow. You have a revitalized Craig Smith you have basically a whole new Craig Smith on the right side, more confident, more kind of comfortable in the Bruins system. Then you have Taylor Hall on your left. And you have healthy Charlie Coyle, who looks great at the Bruins game, by the way. I mean, it's not the Bruins game. The Red Sox game, by the way. Looked great at the Bruins game, huh, Charlie Coyle? Him and McAvoy being there, along with you against the Yankees on Tuesday night now.
Tuesday. It's all blended together.
Yes, all blending together at this point. I also liked how when they were on camera at the Red Sox, I think you could see Coyle kind of mouth to his girlfriend like, "We're on camera right now. Yeah, this is when we're on camera. Like, don't do anything stupid."
Yeah.
But because that camera play was there for a while.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, yeah, back to hockey. But Charlie Coyle, I thought looked great, and I think this is again, we've both said this. If you can just get 40 to 50 points out of him this year, if he could just be productive, if he can just kind of usher along or kind of go along with Taylor Hall and Craig Smith, that line could work together really well. And also we saw it on Taylor Hall's goal on Wednesday night, where Craig Smith takes his normal Craig Smith shot from the right boards, and they successfully break it out, and Hall drives the net hard. I'm wondering for you, how can a guy like Taylor Hall get the most out of Charlie Coyle and Craig Smith?
Yeah, I think, as you said, on that goal was a great example of just how having Hall in that line adds a quick strike element where, with his speed and his ability to move in transition, kind of makes a goal happen out of nothing, right? It seemed like almost like a harmless play. Like, it wasn't even like, a goal that Ullmark gave up yesterday. We had that kick save and it went way out to the slot. Like, that was a kind of a loose puck that literally Hall just beat Vanacek too, like right there, right at the doorstep. So in terms of that quick strike ability, Hall adds to that. But I think with Coyle especially, as much as I think Coyle is obviously a pass first guy, is always looking to, hold on to the puck. I think when you saw him play his best hockey was obviously during the 2019 playoffs, but during that stretch, it was a lot more for him of being kind of a shoot first guy. Not to say that he's going to be Craig Smith, he's going to be firing shots from like 90-degree angles off the net, right? But I think
Rockstar shit.
I think having a guy on the wing who's a talented playmaker, a talented passer, who is able to, hold on to the puck a bit more and frees up Charlie Coyle to, simplify his game, get to grade A ice, hover around. I think that adds another element to Coyle's game and makes him more effective, because you saw during that cup run in 2019 where a guy like Marcus Johansson was there, where a lot of Coyle's goals were, either, in transition or just, finding that soft areas of the ice where he could get a shot through. And where he's not the guy who's tasked with driving the play the entire time or holding on to the puck. You saw a lot of that last year, and he didn't really have the supporting cast, Coyle, to generate much out of it. So if you got a situation where he's in transition and Hall's holding on to the puck, or, he's on along the half boards with the puck and Coyle's allowed to get down low and open up himself for, a quality grade A shot, I think having that wrinkle to the offense, to that line especially, is going to be a major step in terms of getting Coyle going offensively, where, it's not like he's going to be the guy to drive it. I mean, we've talked about this before with Taylor Hall, where he's more or less the new Krejci, where the onus is going to fall on him to, I think, manufacture a lot of that offense. So if Hall's the one holding on to the puck and, finding those seams to defeat a guy like Smith or Coyle down low, it's going to help everyone involved, right? It's going to get Taylor Hall going. It's going to get Charlie Coyle, adding on points. It's going to help all involved. So definitely a different wrinkle, and maybe not what people expect, considering how Charlie Coyle kind of likes to operate in the offensive zone. But I don't think he's going to complain about having a guy like Taylor Hall feeding him grade A looks, in transition or in the offensive zone.
No, and you even look at 2019, he played with Marcus Johansson and Danton Heinen, and Taylor Hall and Craig Smith are substantial upgrades from that. And so I think, you add in the fact that he's healthy, and also Charlie Coyle when he's driving the net too. I mean, you mentioned finding soft spots in the defense. He's always been very good at that. And I think that was something we didn't see a lot of last year. I think that partially came from the knee injury. And so I think you're going to start to see that happen a bit more this year. Also, another thing with Taylor Hall, looks great on that top power play unit, which you had to expect, but he's been a great puck retriever thus far. It's good to have, it's good that the Bruins have him and Marchand down there kind of retrieving pucks as well, because Marchand kind of does that, plays that role a little bit. Obviously, Taylor Hall, I think, is more suited for it, and they have him more as that sort of his thing. But then the second power play unit, I know this wasn't something we planned on hitting on. It's not that big a deal, but obviously the first unit's so good. With the second power play unit, you've Grzelcyk out there. We've seen Riley on it a bit, Craig Smith. How do you see that second power play unit sort of coming to fruition?
Well, it's one of those things where I think, from the Bruins' perspective, it's like, well, hopefully our first power play clicks so much so we don't have to go to it that much. That being said, though, I mean,
True.
So far this preseason, I've been actually pretty impressed with just how their execution has been. I think as you said, Hall adds quite a bit to that top power play unit. They've generated plenty of good chances. Also missed on a few. There's been a couple of times where McAvoy's had some trouble handling the puck up high, and it's led to a puck getting past him, or there's been a drop pass or a feed, a seam pass that ends up going to kind of no man's land, where I think just the execution slightly off. No need to raise the alarms over that. It's still the preseason. You still got
Sweeney's like, that's 1 million deducted. That's
yeah,
1 million
exactly.
deducted per year.
Exactly. But all things considered, right? I think the second power play unit, even though they haven't cashed in maybe as much, I still think you have to be encouraged by the fact that at least they're executing. They're keeping it simple. That's kind of, as much as maybe Grizzly doesn't have as high of a ceiling as McAvoy in the power play, he's generally, what you expect. He's good at getting the puck back and just feeding it back to the open guy. Puck movement's been good. I think Foligno down the net front, whether it's during the power play or even strength, I think one thing that's really impressed me is just his feel for the puck and his ability to move it, very quick out of that net front row, kind of like what Richie did. As much as Richie is known for being just the big guy down low, there's quite a few plays where he'd, hold on to the puck for like a split second and feed it back out to a guy. Like you've seen a little bit of that with Foligno. So obviously the second power play unit is not going to get that many reps. You'd imagine the Bruins hope they don't get much at all if the first power play is operating like they expect it to. But it's also, I think, maybe encouraging from the Bruins' perspective that they're still moving the puck with authority. They're still getting looks. You still got talented guys on that second unit with Smith and DeBrusk and Grzelcyk and all those guys. Like, there's still talent all over that group. It's just encouraging, at least during the preseason, that the execution has been there. Whereas the first power play unit, execution a little bit wonky, but I mean, look at the talent. I think they're going to be fine.
Yeah, I think they'll come to. It's funny you mentioned Nick Ritchie. No one was talking about this. The biggest story of Tuesday night was not that the Red Sox beat the Yankees in the wild card. It was that Nick Ritchie had 2 goals for the Maple Leafs in the preseason. About to become the next Alex Ovechkin. Nick Ritchie Ovechkin. One other thing that people are going to definitely be arguing a lot about over the next bunch of days is who should be the starting goaltender. And if you're going off preseason play alone, I don't think it's even close. Jeremy Swayman's been the better starter for the entire preseason. He's been ridiculously good. But then you have Linus Ullmark, who, again, on Wednesday was shaky. I mean, puck was going through his legs without real issue. I know you can go with each goal and say, well, this could have been better here. He wasn't that good in the preseason. And I get it. Again, he's a free agent. He's in a new place. He's acclimating to with new defensive systems, new defensemen, all that stuff. I know the Bruins are obviously light years better than the Sabres, but there's still adjustment times. I don't think this is going to be Ullmark for his entire Bruins tenure. But if you're deciding on who starts game 1, how can you not go with Swayman?
Yeah, I mean, I literally at this point, and I didn't want to declare any of who should get the nod until we saw Ullmark in this last game, because who knows, he could have went out there and had a 40 save shutout. All right, he's getting back up to speed. And again, I don't think people should still be sounding the alarms of how he looks in the preseason, because I mean, he mentioned just getting more reps and getting back up to speed. I don't think the Bruins are overly concerned of this is like a Manny Fernandez situation or something like that, right? I don't think there's any need to ring the alarms there. But in terms of just earning that first stop, though, I mean, the only thing that works in Ullmark's favor is the fact that he's the veteran and the Bruins signed him to a $20 million contract. Maybe the optics of it aren't great that he's going to be the number 2 guy to open the year, but I mean, look at every other thing working in Swayman's direction, whether it's the baseline numbers, the eye test, the fancy numbers, everything you see shows a guy that, as much as, I think the proactive thing to do, the pragmatic thing to do, is to still be cautious of expecting him to hit a bump in the road, as all young goalies do. But, we're going to be in the middle of November and he's going to have a 940 save percentage and going to be well, listen, it could happen. So you just got to be cautious about it. That being said, you don't want to let the hype train run off the tracks, but he looks really good, man. He looks like the same goalie he was last year, poised, not getting beat clean. Lateral movement's been fantastic. Doesn't get rattled. I mean, he looks legit. Like, for what we've seen so far, there's nothing else can really say other than that he looks very, very good. So if he doesn't get the stat, again, we talked about this during the Dunks episode where
Dunks episode.
yeah, we've talked about it before where, what matters more is who stats in the postseason and what you see over the span of 82 games to make that determination. Opening day can be a lot different. Like how many guys start opening day in baseball and they're not even on the roster. Matt Barnes is the Red Sox closer. He's not even on the LDS roster. So a lot can happen. That being said, in terms of just the only thing, again, working in Ullmark's favor is that contract, maybe just the optics of it. But otherwise, if you look at what player puts you in the best position to win and start off strong, I think it has to be Swayman.
Even some of Ullmark's saves he made were shaky. He'd end up, on his bottom, or there were just little just wasn't as steady as a guy like Swayman has been. And Swayman's just been better. And again, I mean, the Wednesday night game was a real game. Like that, both teams treated it as like an opening night type game. So to me, Swayman is the guy going forward. I know they plan on having it be a little bit split, so I wouldn't be surprised to see like Ullmark at the second or third game after Swayman. But let Swayman be, man. I mean, I think that like that you gotta go with him to start. And that it's funny when we did Bruins beat on Monday, it was the same thing. It was like, well, we'll see. Both have a game left in the preseason. Maybe Ullmark's fantastic. Maybe Swayman's terrible against the Flyers. And by the way, Swayman was unbelievable with a Providence Bruins lineup in front of him in Philly with a lot of their with a lot of their regular lineup in. So to me, Swayman's the guy until he isn't, and I think that we expect him to hit a bump in the road here or there. He'll have a bad start here or there. But I also just think like he looks good, right? Isn't there like that thing with him? And you said that he looks legit. And the eye, if you want to play the eye test game, he passes the eye test, no problem. So, I feel like Ullmark, I could be wrong with this, but I feel like Ullmark is going to maybe start a little slow, but in like somewhere in like November, December, he's going to be really good. He's going to have a stretch of like 10 games where he has like a 1.76 goals against average and he's like nasty again. It's like, all right, now we're cooking. But I think to start, you got to go with Swayman. And I don't see a reason other than Ullmark makes more money, that Swayman should maybe not be the starter. But yes, Jeremy Swayman successfully moved himself into that starting job, at least in most people's eyes. I don't think I've seen a person on Twitter or anywhere kind of advocate for Ullmark to start. But maybe I'm not looking hard enough. Maybe I need to look a little more closer.
You gotta delve into the depths of Bruins Twitter.
Oh, that's where you lose me. Yeah. I'm good.
Yeah, smart.
Lastly, Jack Studnicka looks to be headed to Providence. I know on Monday you had said that it probably wasn't the best idea because it's like when you're in like be a pro mode and you're playing on like rookie or like pro. Like there's only so much you can do at that level. You got to move to that next level. I do feel though as if Studnicka will be brought up one of the first call-ups in the event there's an injury up front. Or I mean, it's weird because even if he's like tearing up the AHL, that's not going to get him to the NHL level. What gets him back up to the NHL, maybe aside from an injury?
It would probably have to be just ineffectiveness from the guys we have up here. So whether that's the third line, which looked really good the first few preseason games, a little bit more quiet in the last game, but I think they want to keep that DeBrusk, Howla, Foligno line together.
DeBrusk can't stop scoring in shootouts, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. They go to shootouts and they count
every time.
And they counted those stats. The dude would have like a 50-goal season because that same move teams can't solve it. But whether it's that line maybe hits a bit of a rut in the early going, or the fourth line, which again some positives. I think Lazar's physicality's been there a little bit more the last couple of preseason games, but I think they want to commit to keeping with Frederick right now. I think they want to have his skill set on that line. It's just getting him going. That's the issue right now, right? Like I think maybe sticking with him and give him 5-10 games, and if it doesn't pan out, maybe you look elsewhere. Like, I think there's opportunity there if Studnicka is playing well down in Providence, which we expect him to, and whether it's, they have to shuffle things up. So maybe it could very well be a situation where if they need to shift around the fourth line, maybe it's you drop down a Foligno or what have you, and you open up the door for Studnicka to be on that third line. Like, there's avenues for him to get up here. It's just you hope that one, he kind of runs with it down and Providence makes the most of it, because it's still a tough situation. Like, to compare it to NHL, it's like when you're in be a pro mode and you're in like training camp preseason and like you have like 10 goals in 3 games and you're like, all right, I'm all set. And they're like, we're going to send you down to Providence. At that point, you're like, fuck this. I'm going to sim to like December. Fuck you guys. Like, I'm not going to play all these games in Providence. And then you get to there and it's like you have 7 goals and 14 assists in like 31 games. And it's like, you're not doing enough. I'm like, I scored 7 goals in a preseason game. Like, what do you want me to do? I'm not going to put in the effort right now. Not to say NHL 21 is like real life. But that being said,
It's just like
but that being said, like, you hope that, as discouraging as it is probably for a guy like Studnicka, who played well, wasn't like he was playing well, and Cassidy still was finding faults in his game. Like, every time you talk about Studnicka with Cassidy, he's like, yeah, played well, played with anyone we put him with. Details of his game, which is important for Cassidy, for young players, was great. Like, you hope that there's just not that level of Studnicka of like, what more do I need to do? Like, I'm being sent down here just because of a numbers game, because it seems like I checked off all the boxes of what they wanted me to do. I added 15 pounds of muscle. I played a lot better, was more assertive with the puck, did well in the PK. So, I think he's still got a bunch of talent. You just hope that he gets down there, and as much as maybe this is a setback for him, he makes the most of it. And it's not like, all right, what am I still doing down here? It's all right, well, I got to be the first man up when something inevitably changes in the Bruins lineup. So you hope that he starts strong down there, gets those top 6 minutes, and starts, burying points and makes a case for himself. Because as you said, if there's any player moving at all, I think Studnicka is probably the first guy up.
Yeah, also, I think, they could even be trying to preserve him in a sense. Again, you don't know the future of Bergeron, and down the middle, as we've said multiple times, you don't have a lot of for sure options going forward. Studnicka is really your hope that he does turn into that. By the way, shout out to the person on Twitter who made an account called like Studnicka's extra 15 pounds or something.
Of course.
Just tremendous. That's a great way to seize the opportunity. Also, another thing with Be a Pro mode, I love when, like, as you said, you score a ton of goals in one game, or you go on, like, in 5 games, you'll score like 15 goals or whatever. And they're like, I'm going to sim the next 2 or 3 games just to like move ahead. And it's like, the coach doesn't think you're doing enough.
Yeah, you were -7 in that game.
So yeah, you might have to move down to the 3rd line. And it's like, what? Why?
Hey, you punched the coach.
I was also
threw
pissed.
Popcorn in the stands. Like, that won't fly.
Yeah, I was also pissed in NHL 21 Be a Pro mode because I was picked 2nd overall. I tore up the pre-draft. I got picked 2nd. I was freaking so pissed. The only time I did Be a Pro mode, by the way, was when I was in quarantine back at the hotel back like a year ago now. Scarring times, but I had nothing else to do, so I was just like, I'm gonna join the NHL. So yeah, that is that. We've covered the Studnicka stuff a lot, but those are kind of the leftover preseason musings. We will have more season preview type episodes coming up, videos. We might do a Q&A. Someone mentioned on Twitter, will we do another Q&A? We might do one where we both just take questions from people and answer what could possibly go wrong. What can the people look forward to, though, over at Boston Sports Journal?
Yeah, kind of as you said, we'll have a bunch of preview content coming out, looking at lineups, final decisions with the roster. Got a few features in the pipeline that I'm hoping to knock out for the season starts, and I'm excited to share. So all that stuff will be over at bostonsportsjournals.com. So subscribe to BSJ. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do that at ConorRyan_93.
Highly recommend all of it. Go do that now. For CLNS Media, I'm Marinofsky. That's Conor Ryan at Boston Sports Journal. You poke the bear, listen.